Pressure cooker business suffer greater stress-related healthcare cost, lower engagement, high absenteeism, and less employee loyalty. Any decent manager will recognize how these trends harm not only employees' well-being, but also companies' financial performance. A very warm welcome to the show, and I'm your host, Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist, Lego Serious Play facilitator, ICF certified coach, and Genos emotional intelligence practitioner. Here we are again for another episode, 30 minutes of valuable learning. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something really interesting which may relate and have a direct impact to your businesses. So the topic is business benefit of being a compassionate leader. When you say compassionate leader, I have an individual all the way from Sydney, Australia, who I'm really honored and a pleasure to host him in today's episode. Let me introduce him. He created the first Australian model and measure of emotional intelligence in the late 1990s. Today, it is used by Fortune 500 organizations in over 33 countries around the world to help identify and develop people's skills. At the same time, he has been a fantastic phenomenon all over the globe. And he lives in Sydney, Australia, where his company, Genos International, is headquartered. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you Dr. Ben Palmer, founder and CEO of Genos International. Ben, welcome to the cafe.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Ben, thank you very much for spending your valuable time in the cafe today to just share your knowledge on this particular topic. I believe, Ben, this has been a crucial element in everybody's life. Business is a basic element where everybody starts to strive and thrive in this particular scenario. So that compassionate leadership is really important. Before we get into that compassionate leadership, I would like to pose this question. Of course, you are the best person who can answer this. Simply to understand our people, what is emotional intelligence and why does it matter? Then?
Emotional intelligence is a set of skills that help us perceive and understand and manage emotions, both within ourselves and within others. And that's important because the way we feel influences three fundamental parts of ourselves. Firstly, the way we think and the decisions that we make and the quality of them. Secondly, the way we feel shows up in our tone of voice, in our facial expressions, and our body language. And because of that, the way we feel is fundamental to how we connect, communicate, and collaborate with each other. And finally, the way we feel influences the way we perform. Undoubtedly, if you look in the social sciences, organizations where people feel valued, cared for, consulted, informed, understood, those type of organizations significantly outperform financially organizations where people feel on average tired, stressed, concerned, worried, fearful about their job, for example. So feelings matter in the workplace. And if you want the best decisions, the best performance, and the best behavior, that really comes from understanding emotions and being able to manage them, influence them within yourself and within others.
So Ben, in that line, in the introduction, I said, of course, you have been working on this since late 1990s. In the recent past only, this has come across, right? After 2010, people are talking a lot, especially this particular scenarios. What is the main reason behind this?
I think there's three main reasons behind it. Firstly, one of the main reasons behind it is the rise of artificial intelligence and machine-led learning. What we are seeing is technology taking over more and more of the thinking aspects of our job, but what machines can't do is take over the feeling aspects of our job, how we influence each other, how we motivate and engage each other, how we create a positive workplace. So those skills are becoming more prized, and we're seeing organizations like the World Economic Forum saying, hey, emotional intelligence is one of the critical skills for 2020 and beyond. The second reason, of course, is the pandemic. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, organizations really ran to functional skills, project excellence, financial acumen, business strategy. Those were the important things. Now, as we've been coming out of a wellness pandemic, of course, organizations are running to resilience, empathy, compassionate leadership, to use that term that you used at the outset here, as in. So the second reason why emotional intelligence is just exploding in popularity is because of the pandemic. And the third reason, which is kind of related to it, is I think organizations more than ever before are recognizing the benefits of mental fitness and mental wellness. So organizations more than ever before recognize the relationship between the mental health of their employees and the financial health of their organizations. They're the three main drivers. And just to give you a sense of how popular it is, Capgemini, the big consulting firm, recently did a survey of the market and came to the conclusion that demand for emotional intelligence will increase sixfold over the next 3 years. So if you haven't done anything about your emotional intelligence, it's a great time to do so, because it will be great for your career. Now's the time to be really around and deep on this skill.
Absolutely. I think I can't agree more on that, because the people, the way they're talking, especially the big giant business leaders are talking a lot of it. So when you did talk about artificial intelligence coming to picture, the main reason the organization doing a lot of research and development on automation, digitalization, artificial intelligence, the reason being to change the landscape of the business, to increase that performance, the profitability. In this context, how emotional intelligence can be a game changer for everyone's business?
I think it'll be a game changer because while we're going to see more and more things automated, we aren't going to see the social and emotional and interpersonal aspects of work automated, not least in our lifetime, I don't think. So, what is equally important as good thinking is good influence. People buy things based on emotion and then justify them with facts. People are persuaded by emotion and then facts. So, it's just one of those elements that I think organizations have the opportunity to deepen up on and go deep on. And now is the prime time, if you like, for them to do that.
Absolutely. So in that context, Ben, how does this compassionate leadership can help people to build that business in your experience?
Well, let's talk about performance. As I was saying before, if you really want people to be highly engaged in their work, to be looking after your business the same way they might look after their other things that they love, then you need to make them feel very pleasant and positive emotions about your business. When people feel like they're understood, when they feel valued, when they feel recognized, when they feel consulted, when they feel important, these are the emotions that drive high performance. So we need to make sure that our people have the right technical skills and capabilities and qualifications. Most organizations can do that. That's not the competitive landscape. The competitive landscape, where those organizations that really shine are those that are able to create these feelings in people, because it's those feelings that drive the best decisions, behavior, and performance ultimately, and therefore business results.
Fantastic, Ben. I think I really like the fact that you brought that element of business decisions, because leaders are mainly focused on strategic level and making those business decision. Can I put you on this? We know the fact that emotional reasoning has been a great influencing aspect in terms of making that business decision. What would your take on this?
I think that the way we feel influences our decisions, paradoxically, in positive ways and in negative ways. A lot of people wouldn't ask their boss for a pay rise or more resources if they knew their boss was in a bad mood. Why? Because when a boss is in a bad mood, they're much more likely to say no. People know that. It's called mood congruent thought. And, for a lot of business people, they make decisions, even if they think they're not, based in their emotion as opposed to in objectivity. So emotions can get in the way of cool, crisp, clear thinking. Paradoxically, emotional information can really help make effective decisions. If you know the morale of your team is down and you're trying to implement change, it's probably going to go on much longer and less efficiently than if the morale of the team was up. So you can use that kind of information to shape not only the decision, but the execution of it. And I found that leaders who make decisions based on their social license to operate, which I'll talk about in a moment, when they make decisions based on values, when they make decisions based on purpose, and employees can see that, they buy into them more, and you usually make much more effective decisions. If we have a look at some of the biggest corporate scandals in the world, we've got plenty of them here in Australia at the moment. Usually underneath corporate scandals is greed. Greed is a strong, powerful kind of emotion in some ways that gets in the way of good, crisp, clear thinking. You know, organizations, whether they know it or not, have what I call a social license to operate. You know, organizations need to do good in the world. When they don't do good in the world, they often get in trouble. An example here in Australia, 7-Eleven, people might be familiar with 7-Eleven stores. In Australia, 7-Eleven was found to be underpaying staff. And they went through an incredible lawyer case about this, and they had to pay back $173 million to people that they had been ripping off. And the mood in community about 7-Eleven was very, very negative for quite some time. And of course, it hurt their earnings because everybody decided to boycott 7-Eleven as a way of saying, you're going to treat your people like that? We don't want to purchase from you. You might see in the world at the moment, the Chinese and the Australian government are loggerheads over some things with each other, and China's making some interesting decisions around things like whether they should accept our wine into their country. So what's the rest of the world doing? The rest of the world is now saying, well, China's bullying Australia. Everybody should drink Australian wine this festive season. So these sorts of things, these poor decisions that can be made either in organizations or in government, get in the way, if you like, of good business overall. And I found that it's our emotional reasoning, our capacity to actually think about how emotions like greed or jealousy or other things, they get in the way of business leaders all the time, just like they do for anybody else around the world. And so it's really important to stop and think about the way you feel, particularly in leadership, because you have a social license to operate. You're looking after people, that is your employees. They're your biggest asset, as everyone knows. So central to that is understanding the way they feel and making decisions that are best for your company, best for your people, and that are making a positive contribution to society.
So Ben, I believe you also heard, I'm not sure that I've not heard any Australian companies have got this, but in Sri Lankan context, there are some of the companies in this pandemic period, they have performed not like ever before. I mean, they have been gained profit. Do you think this particular compassion or getting more engaged with people is the result of this? Or because when we say crisis, we don't see that performance coming in. We saw in 2008-9 financial crisis, everybody was suffering, but this is a different setup now. See, even Korean GDP and context of Chinese, the GDP is getting better performance. What would be the reason?
Look, there are many reasons that drive high performance. And I'm talking that basically the way people feel is one of those things that drives high performance. So it's really important to understand the way people feel. But of course, in business, that's not the only thing that drives performance. You've got to have the right product. You've got to be in the right location. You've got to have great marketing. All those things, at the end of the day, contribute to performance. But if you look into the last 10 years of organizational psychology, the last 10 years of research on organizations, you'll see that in large data, more times than not, in high-performing organizations, people feel those positive, pleasant emotions that I was talking about before. Now, of course, there are always outliers on the periphery. Some organizations make a lot of money through corruption, by way of example, not through making employees feel those ways. And so that can distract us from this message. It can make us think, oh, look, performance feelings don't really matter because look at that organization over there. They're performing really well. But underneath that, you might find corruption, or you might find it's a fantastic product in a blue ocean world, so to speak, where there's not a lot of competition. I mean, pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money out of products that they have on patent where others can't compete with them, you know. So of course, in those kind of worlds, there are always organizations that that achieve incredible performance, maybe not through feelings, but on average, if you look through the large data, feelings are absolutely a fundamental part of sustained long-term strategic success and financial performance.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. So in line with that, now we talked about feelings. When coming to that, how can emotional intelligence be a life-changing for people? That is what I think one of the crucial elements we need to understand. We have been talking about emotional intelligence a lot, but people still feel that this is a very, jargon and very technical element. So it's very scary stuff. So if we put in a way forward, like what are the life-changing aspect for people in EI?
Yeah. Well, the reason we call it life-changing for people, that is to do an emotional intelligence development program, is because when you help someone be more emotionally intelligent, so they're perceiving and understanding emotions better, they're managing emotions more effectively, they're more empathetic and compassionate towards others. Of course, they're not just going to do that at work, they're going to do that socially and romantically as well. So the reason it's life-changing for people is people become a better partner, people become better friends, people become a better father or a better mother, and so on. You know, you can apply the skills of emotional intelligence to all aspects of your life that have relationships in them. Now, let's talk about relationships for a moment. Relationships are the single biggest predictor of your mortality. Whether you'll live to 100 or not, the single biggest predictor of that is not whether you breathe clean air, not whether you smoke cigarettes or not whether you drink alcohol or don't drink alcohol, not whether you're fat, thin, or exercise or whatever. Of course, all those things contribute to your mortality, but nowhere near to the same extent as the quality of your relationships. Feeling lonely, by way of example, is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of its negative impact on your health. Stress is another big thing that impacts our health. So again, why is it life-changing for people? Because when you develop emotional intelligence, you essentially help people be better at relating to others. And so they become a better father, parent, sibling, friend, mother, father, and so on.
Fantastic. I think that is what we need to realize, that pause for a moment and think what exactly I am feeling today, or what exactly the moment I'm feeling today, right? So it is really crucial. With that line, Ben, how can people improve this, their emotional intelligence? If you can share a couple of tips in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's pick out the 4 critical elements of it: self-awareness, self-management, awareness of others, and being able to positively influence the way others feel. To enhance your self-awareness, you can stop and reflect on the way you feel. You can think about the things that trigger emotions for you and identify those. And you can, get to understand the sorts of things that shape the way you feel. You know, your values and beliefs, your worldview, those sorts of things. That can improve your emotional self-awareness. How do you improve your own management of emotions? I recommend to everyone, firstly, that you engage in things, in other words, do things that move you emotionally. Just like you go for a run if you want to get fit, if you want to get better at perceiving and managing emotions within yourself, you need to stretch all your biology for emotions. You need to exercise your biology for emotions. So what moves you emotionally? Is it certain music? Is it certain scents? Is it a certain prayer or a certain meditation that you might do? Is it watching America's Got Talent on YouTube? That's mine. I love it. I don't know why. There's something about achievement. There's something about seeing young people getting up on stage and having a go. That moves me emotionally. So if you want to develop your emotional management skills, do things that move you emotionally, not just pleasant either, but unpleasant as well. You know, it's really important to lean into the various types of emotions that we have in life. Of course, the other thing we can do to manage our own emotions effectively is watch what we eat, get the right amount of sleep, exercise most days of the week, and have well-regulated boundaries. So what gets in the way of your emotional system? Substances like caffeine and alcohol. You know, you shouldn't drink coffee after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Shouldn't drink alcohol every night of the week, if not any night of the week. You know, you can do a lot of boundary setting like that. If you look at your phone right up until when you go to bed, guess what? Your sleep won't be as good as it would be if you had to just put the phone down for 1 hour before you went to bed. So there are all these little habits, unhealthy habits that all of us have, and you can get better at managing your emotions by knowing your unhealthy habits and changing them.
I really like that, don't drink coffee after 2 p.m. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Then in that context, now let me go back to the corporate before my final question comes to you. Creating that workplace, creating that culture, how can the organization look up to that? I know you told about the individual aspect, because when you go to a workplace, it is an environment, different cultures, different nationality, different religion, different race. It's a mix of people. How can a compassionate leader, transform this culture into a compassionate workplace, or more into EI-based workplace?
I think the very first step is to get everybody together. If you've got an enormous organization, then get people together in their teams, but get people together for a half day where you ask them to explore, how do we want to feel in this workplace? In other words, to come up with a bit of a credo, if you like, or a vision statement on feelings. You know, now there are all sorts of little tools and techniques you can do to help facilitate this, even if you just put a whole heap of emotion words out on a table that people can pick and choose from. But essentially facilitate an activity where you say to people, what are the top 3 feelings that we want to experience most of the time in this workplace, right? Let's say it was feeling valued, feeling acknowledged, feeling recognized. Okay, fantastic. The second question then to ask is, what are the things we should do with each other, for each other, to make us feel those emotions? Okay. Third step is then to also focus on the emotions you don't want to experience at work. What are the feelings that we want to minimize, that we only want to have some of the time, not all of the time? Feeling worried, feeling stressed, feeling frustrated, by way of example. Great. What are the sort of things that can make us feel those emotions, and what do we do about it when we experience them? By doing this task, what you essentially create is an emotional culture, an explicit emotional culture that's been devised by the people, for the people that are working in your business. And then everyone can become accountable and responsible for recognizing, understanding, and helping to flourish those emotions that the team want, and to minimize or to respond effectively to those emotions that you don't want.
Absolutely, Ben. I think there'll be a positive impact on the business when we start working on this, right?
Incredible positive impact, yes. Just the discussion alone, people will go home feeling fantastic that night. But it will last on days, particularly if you can really steer people towards living the emotional culture the team want to have.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ben. So the last question, I think we are almost done with our conversation, the 30 minutes period. So my last question for you, what have you learned the most about this topic yourself, Ben?
What I've learned about it is, the more you study it, the more you realize you're just at the tip of the iceberg. In other words, there's a lot of depth to it, that you should continually study it and try to improve it within yourself. And the thing that I have learned about it is that you can make it very practical. You can do small numbers of things that make you feel better, that make you more empathetic, that make you compassionate. It's just like playing the piano. It's actually not as technical as you think if you just sit down at the keyboard and start to strum, if I can use that as a metaphor, the keys of emotional intelligence. But it starts with you, and it starts with you leaning in. Even if you spend 10 minutes a day thinking about emotional intelligence, studying emotional intelligence, I guarantee you at the end of a month, 30 days of 10 minutes looking at emotional intelligence, you'll be incredibly surprised what it means for you personally. What would it mean to you personally to get a 2, 3, or 4% uplift in your mood, and to be coming to work 2 or 3% happier than what you are today? I can tell you, it'll be life-changing, not only for you, but for all the people around you.
So it will be end up being as game changing for the business also.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So that's the time what we have for today. My key takeaway is AI is not a technical jargon. It is within us. It's a matter of, as Ben said, just start practicing those small things. Just pause and just create that awareness among you, what you feel, how are you feeling. It will enable you to practice the AI in your life. So what is yours? What are you going to do differently to be that compassionate leader to change that business landscape and bring the benefit to your business and for your people? So thank you very much, Doctor. That was Dr. Ben Palmer, founder and CEO, Genos International. You can get connected to Ben via his LinkedIn profile, Ben Palmer, and you can log on to Genos website, www.genosinternational.com, to learn more about emotional intelligence. They have some fantastic case studies, researchers to learn about emotional intelligence, and they have come up with this very recently. I'm really impressed with Ben on the digital platform. It is really awesome. It is user friendly as well. Thank you for bringing that to the society as well. So Ben, thank you very much for your valuable time. You spent half an hour with us. Thank you, and it was a great honor to have you on the show as well. Thank you, Ben.
It was a pleasure to be here, Zin. Thank you very much for having me.